Today we're going to be talking about those alleged Cyberpunk multiplayer leaks, as well as changes that we want to see come to the single player in those big, huge patches that we're expecting. I'm Lucy, and joining me today is Jake Decker.
Hello.
And Jean-Luc.
Hi.
Hello lads, let's talk a little bit about these Cyberpunk multiplayer leaks. Very top level, it originally came from DSOgaming, but they found in the game's executable files some references to the multiplayer modes. So what they've been able to gather so far is that allegedly there will be a standard deathmatch mode as well as heists. We will link our story and the original reporting below if you want to dig in deep into it, but let's start by talking about what our hopes are for Cyberpunk multiplayer. Jake, I'll come to you first. What do you want to see from it?
I want to see co-op stuff, and it sounds like the heists might be that. I'm not super interested in the multiplayer PvP, partly because the game, I don't know, playing the game, it doesn't feel as good as most first-person shooters that have a competitive side to them. That being said, like maybe on PC it'll be better. They'll do some refinements and whatnot, but I'd be super curious to see what they could do with some co-op, especially with CD Projekt Red storytelling. Like it would be cool to have something similar to Divinity, maybe like smaller scale Divinity missions where you and your crew that spec'd into different abilities can head into a heist maybe, and maybe one character's really good at talking to people and you can talk your way into a secured area, and then another person can be your sharpshooter, something like that. Like, I don't know, I'd be curious to see how those different gameplay styles can kind of complement each other and make a fun co-op experience.
It's funny you said that about having roles, because it looks like what they've managed to find are references to different character classes. I guess we all expected that we wouldn't be able to take our V into multiplayer. However, they have been finding references to different classes. They seem to be called, first of all, I love the fact that the files are called Muppet. So there's Solo, Assassin, Netrunner, and Techie, which I'm pretty interested in. I think Netrunner, obviously, and Assassin and Techie are pretty self-explanatory. Solo, I wonder if that's going to be more of your kind of soldier class, your kind of brute force.
Probably.
Jean-Luc, what do you reckon?
Yeah, that's the part that I'm the most curious about, is how they changed the classes. Because if there's one thing I would like them to do is maybe make those classes feel more distinct. Like in the single player game, you know, like as a Netrunner, if you want to like role play a Netrunner, you could do hacking, but you still kind of have to combine that with like a fusion of guns or stealth. So I would like to see if they are adding new abilities into the multiplayer, especially because there are some abilities that you probably can't make work in a multiplayer environment, like being able to slow down, or like really being able to like how does like hacking an enemy's optics work in multiplayer? Actually, that sounds really cool. I would like to see that, where like you just lose the ability to see for like 10 seconds. But yeah, because the way the game is designed, you can kind of spec in the game's pretty flexible, so I guess it would be a lot more rigid. So like I assume an assassin, you would really want to stealth. You probably have a katana, because that's usually what you do when you're an assassin in a video game. Techie's the one, like, I'm not really sure entirely what the difference between a Techie and a Netrunner would be, so I'm curious what the distinction between those two are.
Yeah, I think that's especially interesting because technical ability is kind of what you see in the game, and technical ability has to do with crafting and opening certain doors and whatnot. So I don't know how you would spin that out into a full character class. So I'd hope that the Techie in particular does get some offensive abilities that would make playing that more interesting. Because I think even now playing the Techie as V, it can be kind of dull.
Yeah, give him a turret, maybe.
Yeah, give him a turret they can throw down.
I was going to say, it feels to me, and maybe this is just because in my head I'm thinking of what traditionally single-player games have managed to have a successful multiplayer component, and you got to think of like Mass Effect 3. Some people might not call it successful, but I think Mass Effect 3 multiplayer is great.
I think everyone likes that game's multiplayer.
I don't think people liked the way that the it had to feed in to get like the best ending.
Okay.
But also like Ghost of Tsushima as well. So these are the games that I kind of have in my head, but referring to Mass Effect 3, obviously you had the engineer class, which is maybe a little bit more of where I see Techie going, which is more tech armor, maybe help beef up your squad a little bit and improve people's armor, but as well putting down turrets would be really cool. CDPR have previously said that multiplayer would be its own standalone thing, so I'm very interested in seeing how we're gonna like all group up online, if there's gonna be any aspect of a social space. Jake, what do you reckon?
Yeah, that's something I'm also super interested in, because I think that, especially as of late, when people aren't able to socialize as much, I think social spaces can be very important in games like this. So I'd be curious to see what that kind of looks like. Like, are you gonna have apartments that you can invite friends over to, and then you can plan a heist, kind of like GTA style? Or maybe can you like go to a bar and there'll be other players there and you can pick up missions and group up with them from that aspect. It's kind of hard to say, but I hope if they do add a social space, or if they add like mini games or something to pass the time, because that is kind of an odd thing that was left out of Cyberpunk entirely. But it would be nice to, like, I don't know, hang out at a bar, drink and play games with your pals.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Is like the direct comparison is GTA Online, and I think that's a fine route to go with the game. But like, yeah, GTA has built in, like, you know, all these elements. Like they added recently in GTA Online like a casino like this that you can go to, and there's all these, like, you know, casino mini games and elements you can do that Cyberpunk just doesn't really have. So I think they would need to add a lot more of that to the game, because I don't think just like Deathmatch would like really hang in the long term. Like you kind of need to create a space that has more variety in what you're doing, so people feel like more invested in like hanging out there in the long term, or like role playing with their friends.
I was gonna say a game that does that really well is Red Dead Online. So obviously being a prequel, the prequel story, it's like in Red Dead Online, for Red Dead 2 in particular, you get to go and take missions from Bonnie McFarlane and Sadie Adler and other characters that you encounter both in Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2, which I think is a very smart way of attaching you further to a game, even though it is a standalone kind of property. So we know that it's probably not going to be a V Johnny Silverhand story, but I would love to, you know, go to the afterlife and talk to Rogue if this had some kind of like prequel element, some story through line to keep me invested.
How about Jackie?
Yes, I would absolutely love that. Definitely really wanted to see more of Jackie in
Hang out more with
Cyberpunk.
Judy?
Yes, I would love that. Okay, so those are our hopes and dreams for Cyberpunk multiplayer. We will, of course, be keeping you updated as we hear more. But it sounds like we're not going to get multiplayer for at least a year. I think CDPR have said it's going to be 2022, which feels like a lifetime away. However, there are going to be big changes coming to Cyberpunk's single-player campaign. Obviously, there are going to be some big, huge patches coming. And boy, do we have a list of things that we want to see fixed in the game beyond bugs, because otherwise we would be here all day, and they have been releasing these hot fixes to address a lot of the bugs. However, there are just some things at the kind of core gameplay level. We don't want to be backseat game designers, but these are some quality of life improvements that I think we would all love to see. Jean-Luc, you've made a list. So
I have grievances
I'm
with
gonna
this
come
game.
to you.
Yeah, just like you said, I'm not trying to be a backseat game designer, but there's like certain things that the game does that I think they could just like easily fix, or hopefully easily fix, that are like nice quality of life changes. So I'll just run through these real quick. You guys can let me know what you think of them. First off, the crouch button and the skip dialogue button are the same button. And so if you are stealthed and you start a conversation, you have to remain stealth the entire time.
You can get around that, and I found out by accident. Is that
really?
You hold the crouch button.
I tried that. I just kept skipping dialogue, and then I was like, I'm not going to touch it.
Doesn't always work. Sometimes it does. But just clear up that distinction. That'd be great.
Yes. And then moving on to another example where buttons serve the same purposes. When you're like using your scanner ability to like try and like ping enemies, and you want to like zoom in because you're trying to like scout a base, it's the same like button to like pick your hacking stuff. So if you're on a person, you can't zoom into them. You have to like, I have this trick where I have to like look at the sky, zoom in a bunch, and then turn. So just find a way to, I don't know. I'm not sure. I get that like they ran out of space on the controller, but it's like, I'm just like, it's maddening to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. Please fix that. Other stuff, small things. Don't let people call you in the middle of dialogue. That's happened to me several times where I have a conversation just like cut short. Also on top of that, I think they need to adjust the length of time when before a player an NPC responds to you. So when you're picking your dialogue option, if you wait like 2 seconds, they'll be like, "Oh, hey V, you still here? Are you still here? V,
So, you listening to me?
you listen to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm trying to make an important decision about what I want to say. Leave me alone."
They want you to know that they recorded all that dialogue, so they got to use it. They got to make it known.
Give me just increase the length of time, like maybe 10 seconds. Like it's so short, and it just like it stresses me out. Like as someone who's like, I just want to take the time to make this decision. And then the other one is, please chill on all the notifications about people trying to sell me their cars. I think it's cool you can buy cars in the game. I love the amount of options. I'm constantly getting that ping. I'm just like, my phone is blowing up about cars, and I do not care. Like 90% of the time, they need it. I don't know. Like there needs to be a better way to do that isn't so like intrusive.
So I was thinking about that, and I would love. I agree. I think the pings are egregious, and they happen way too frequently. I would love it if they just emailed it to you. And if you want to go track them all down, you basically have a version of Auto Trader that V can access when they hack, or whenever they use laptops or not terminals, but whenever they use laptops, they can just go on. It's like this Night City Auto Trader, and everything is there. And maybe you just get emails from them, so you can read through, and then they appear in your quest log, rather than, "Hey, I got this cool car, can't afford," like just popping up every 5 minutes. So.
That and I would love if they changed the icon on the map, because I'm like going through the map and I'm trying to figure out like what side quests I haven't done, and it's like, oh nope, that's a car.
It does say when you hover over it, at least.
It does say
but
when you hover over it.
I know what you're saying. It'd be nice to separate that so I can like look at the map and be like, yep, I've done all the side quests.
Exactly.
As opposed to, it looks like there's still a ton of side quests, but they're all $250,000 cars that players only buy.
Yeah, just change it to a little like a car icon would be cool. Another one would be let me ping items for junk for quick selling. Would be great. There is a junk system, but it's just like it's just specific items that are junk, and I would love if I could just like go through my weapons and like ping for junk, and then I could just sell them all in one go. That would be a nice quality of life change.
That I don't think I ever ate or did anything with, and I was just hanging on to it. So that would be good. I'd like that.
A big one that I know a lot of people talk about is letting me re-access the character creator or change your hairstyle mid-game. I think it's a huge one that I imagine they'll do, just because so many people have like requested that. I would love for them to, because it's like, it's Cyberpunk. I should be able to just like walk into a place and be like, I want to change my face. You know, like I think they probably have to limit it where I don't think you should be able to necessarily maybe change like your voice or your gender once you pick it in, just because of like story purposes. But being able to adjust the face and hair.
Just go to a Ripper doc, like add that section into a Ripper doc, cost a flat amount of money, and then you just get the character creator again. You could change it. What was it? Saints Row 2 had the plastic surgeon you could go to where you could change your character. That was always a nice touch.
Exactly. And then on top of that, I would love to see them add more character customization options, specifically colors. I thought the colors in the game were pretty limited. There was no like true black in the colors. It was always like a greenish black, and I was like, add a true black would be great. And then my final one, which actually will lead nicely into Jake's, was let me look at the clothing on my character before I buy it. It's like super annoying. So like you just have to look at the little tiny icon, and you don't know how it's actually going to look on V if you're specifically buying for fashion versus buying for just armor. But that kind of leads into the larger issue about the whole armor fashion system, which I know, Jake, you have thoughts on.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I know a lot of people have talked about this too, but the game is super interested in fashion and what V wears, but unfortunately it's all tied to armor stats. So you need to be wearing Like if you're like me, you always want the best equipment, but unfortunately the best equipment usually looks stupid.
Yep.
So I'm running around looking like an idiot, but I'm apparently pretty badass because I've got a nano armor fiber coat or whatever. But that kind of also brings up a bigger point that I wanted to make. Like, it would be kind of cool if there was a hardcore version, or I don't want to use hardcore, but if there was like another way to play the game that kind of did away with a lot of the arbitrary RPG stuff. This is probably pretty controversial because I know I love RPGs too, but it would be kind of nice to, like, not be picking up weapons constantly that are the same model but slightly better. It would be cool if it was more focused around the crafting, which is an entirely underutilized element in the game. Like, I'd rather just have one gun that I maybe saved up for and purchased, and then from there I can upgrade it, maybe take it to one of the shopkeepers one of the gunsmiths who can upgrade it and whatnot, as opposed to just flipping through weapons constantly. Because I find a gun I like, I don't use it that long though, because I find something that's better, and if I want to deal with these higher level enemies, I kind of need to switch to it. And then it also just goes for like the food you're talking about, Lucy. It'd be nice if there was a hunger system or something like that. And I know we're kind of leaning into backseat game development here, which I don't want to get too far into, but that was always one of my favorite aspects of a lot of similar RPGs. Like Fallout New Vegas, for example, had a really great hardcore mode that made all of these useless items useful, like water and food, as opposed to just like giving you like a little extra HP or stamina boost or whatever. Like, you had to kind of maintain that, and I know that's not for everyone, but it would really make me feel more a part of the world. And then also, you can't just like go to a bar and have a drink. I mean, you can buy a drink, but then you just go to a menu and do it. Even though in the game there's a bunch of drinking animations that you can do in cutscenes, so it'd be cool to kind of separate those out. So if you want to just hang out in a bar and just chat with the bartender or whatever, you could do that and sip on a beer or something.
I would personally love a very small quality of life update, but I find driving, I actually kind of enjoy driving in Cyberpunk. However, I think having the player icon in the center of the map when you're driving at speed is a real issue, and I have overshot things so many times just because I don't know that there's a bend coming up, and I just have to do a really awkward U-turn in the middle of the highway. So I would love to see that just adjusted just a little bit. So I think fair to say a big list of things that we would love to see personally improved in Cyberpunk 2077 in those big new patches that are going to be coming up. If you have your own suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. We might do a follow-up video. And for all things Cyberpunk, we've got so much. We've got so many guides, let's plays, the whole kit and caboodle. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to GameSpot, and we'll see you next time.